Moving the microphone. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Demons from Outer Space. It's another episode. I don't know what number. Maybe it's 149. Maybe it's episode 1. I don't know. It could be either. You decide.
I don't think it's episode 1.
You know what, Dylan? It's whatever the people want. You can't tell them it's not.
Factually, I can.
Dylan McCandless, Super DM 64. He's the guy on the other side of the country doing this with me. It's not really the other side of the country.
It's not the other side.
It's a different part.
It's the same side. It's lower.
You know what? Just say hi. Nobody wants your sass. No, not yet. Oh, yeah, I guess they do. I guess that's why they listen to the show, probably. But
I mean, it's to the southwest of you, but not in any extreme degree. Hi, everybody. It is indeed episode 149.
Do you want to take out a map and just show everybody?
I mean, no.
Just settle it and kill this joke once and for all.
Pull up the fucking Google map and just
look up where do Zazubaar and Super DM 64 live, and see what happens.
Do you think they'll find anything that way? They might find you that way. I don't know about me.
Why? I don't think so. I hope not. I mean, if they do, they can come to my house, and I just won't let them in.
I mean, as long as our NSA agent knows where we are.
Oh, right on. Well, what do you think his or her name is?
I'm feeling a.
I feel like only a man could handle our shit.
I'm feeling a Joe.
Maybe that's just generic enough. Maybe an Ezekiel is maybe not generic enough, but I like Ezekiel better. I like his name to be Ezekiel.
Maybe it's a sassy black man named Tayshawn. I don't know.
Maybe it's a sassy transvestite named Cliff.
Tim Curry. No. I
like Cliff better. So
did Tim Curry in Home Alone 2. There's a scene where they played the movie and he was like, "You've been smooching everybody," and then he names Cliff and everybody gasps and looks over and the one security guard has the name tag and it says Cliff and he's like, "It's not true."
Wow. I didn't even do that intentionally. So as you can tell, we're going to be talking about science tonight. It's been a while since we've gone through a bunch of articles I have saved on Facebook and talk about whether or not they're bullshit or not.
Most of them probably are. Neil deGrasse Tyson does not.
He doesn't write for this show, huh?
he does not. What's the word I'm looking for? Endorse this podcast.
No, if anything, he probably wouldn't even be able to handle the audio quality. He'd be like, "This is just badly made."
Yeah. I do, however, endorse his mustache. It is majestic.
Well, you know what, Dylan? Don't fucking endorse competitors, all right?
Competitors.
We're trying to derail Neil deGrasse Tyson, so people will come to us for their scientific information. It doesn't matter if it's accurate. It just matters if we're relied upon for that niche.
That's a bad plan for America and the world at large.
I think it's a great plan. Yeah, but it's a great plan for us, though.
No, because it's bad for America, and I'm one of the idiots who lives in it.
All right, Peter Quill. Just don't go punching Thanos, okay? And we'll probably be fine. So we're gonna start off with a little story. You just sit right there.
All about how
Max and relax outside of your school. And they're like, "What are you doing? School's over. Like, what are you doing here?" And you're just like, "Oh, I'm listening to a podcast." What? What?
Also, you're a man in your mid-20s. What are you doing standing outside the school right now? Do you have a relation?
I'm shooting hoops, you know. Well, you don't have your own hoops? What? This conversation derailed quickly and eventually ended in a gunfight.
Did you get all dressed up this morning and shove a bagel up your ass just so you could go to a school and stand outside?
Oh, look at you referencing memes. Aren't you one of the cool kids who references memes?
Is that what the cool kids do? Because if so, there's a serious...
I don't know, Dylan. You tell me. Oh!
Because if so, there's a serious drop in quality on what is considered cool these days.
No shit. Did you get the article I sent you? I sent it to you on Facebook. Oh, you're presumably looking at it because you're one of the cool kids who are always looking at Facebook, and you're always tapped in. You always know what's going on.
I am looking at it now.
Oh, I fucking bet you are, because you're so goddamn cool.
I can't even tell if you're trying to insult me anymore.
I don't know either. It's an interesting middle ground where I'm just trying to get a reaction out of you more than anything.
Oh, better men than you have died trying.
All right.
To get a reaction of any kind. No.
So apparently this may sound like the plot to a science fiction movie. Oh, hang on. Oh, this is by Josh Davis. This is the guy with the dogs. We've worked with him before, even though he doesn't know.
Have we? Did I go on like a scree on like how he was like an asshole, or was he?
We have not liked some of his what's the word? Figurative language, let's say.
Okay. Usually when we talk about anybody on this podcast, it's one of two things: either I'm like, no, they're all right, or I fucking hate them, they're a piece of shit. And I can never remember who has been in what category.
You just remember reacting. You don't know what your reactions were.
Exactly.
It's a sign of old age. So
people quote the podcasts to me sometimes, and I always don't catch it because I don't remember
people
what
in your regular life, like your parents and.
No, they don't know that I do things on the internet. No, like on Facebook.
I just like the idea that they secretly do, like they've been keeping up with it ever since we started, and then one day they're just gonna drop it on you, like, "Hey, Dylan, bullets in the bathroom." And you're just like, "What?"
They already know that story anyway, so that wouldn't be like. But I get what you're saying. It's no, I don't think.
Do we speak the same language? Sometimes I wonder.
Anyway,
you talk
no.
so weird.
But yeah, I don't remember what the fuck I say in these things.
No, I don't think anybody does. No, apparently some people do, which I think is great. I don't remember anything anymore 5 seconds after I do it. But I do remember that we were reading this article. So scientists have managed to implant a human mini brain into the skulls of mice, and I love how that's underlined in blue. It's an effective way to really give that some oomph. What's more, they could check up on how the human cells were doing simply by peering through a little window they inserted in the bone. What does that mean? Like a glass window? Like a window fitter window? Or
I mean, probably just like
understand.
A hole. Probably just like a hole that they can look through with their like microscope or whatever.
Sounds
I don't
like
know.
some weird This sounds like shit that Frankenstein would be like, "Hey, maybe don't do that. Maybe that's unnecessary."
Sounds like some fucking Spider-Man the animated series neogenic recombinator
yeah.
shit.
Like Dr. Kurt Connors trying to cure his lack of an arm.
Like 80% of the villains in Spider-Man the animated series, yeah.
Imagine there was one who was like, "I don't have a brain," which was most of them. But one of them, that was his only issue, and he wanted to create a brain for himself, but the only way he could do it was by building it piece by piece in various mice, and then turning those mice into one brain. And it's a very odd plot. I don't know how Spider-Man would combat that, or why Spider-Man would combat that. I think that would be more like a... I can't even imagine what Marvel character... That seems more just like an issue, like a problem for that guy's family, more than anybody else.
Because in the comics, each villain's got like their own origin story, and it's very, complex, and it involves different scientific-y things going wrong. Half of the villains in Spider-Man, they were like, "Here, a magic neogenic gun. Bam, you're a lizard. Bam, you're a vampire. Bam, you're a scorpion man." Like,
oh, is it actual magic? No. Oh, no. Don't be silly. This is science, my dear boy. Oh, really? Are you going to explain it? No, I don't know anything about science. I just know that this is science. I can only point science out. I know nothing about it. That's how I feel about myself. I just pointed out. I don't really understand it. No, I understand some things. I understand why they decided to put a fucking glass window in this mouse.
Yeah, so that they can...
Makes perfect sense to me. So they can, look at its little heart as it beats into oblivion in total fear at the horrible monsters that have ruined its life. I mean to save people's lives.
So, at what point do we make the obligatory Pinky and the Brain joke? Because
I think you just did.
Okay.
It's a good job, I guess.
Just check that off the list here.
Okay. I'm glad there's a list like that. I had no idea we were so organized. Awesome. That gives me so much more confidence about this show now. So the human brain cells were first grown in the lab to form what are called organoids. That sounds like an 80s cartoon. The organoids.
Organoid. Sounds like
Remember the Inhumanoids? But imagine that, but they're all just like giant organs, which is essentially what that show was. Remember there was the one, he was the giant stomach, basically, and you could watch people be dissolved inside of him?
It kind of reminds me of the good faction from Small Soldiers. What were they called? It was something similar.
Like the weird bear people?
Yeah, well, they weren't bears. Like the main guy was.
I couldn't really think of an animal to describe them as. I thought bear
the main
was
guy.
The best. They looked a little Chewbacca-y.
The main guy was a cat, but the rest of them were kind of like just different types of weird monsters. It was almost like they walked off.
Oh, they were all different? I thought they were all the same. I thought they were all the brown, hairy men.
No. How long has it been since you watched Small Soldiers?
Not recently. I'll tell you that much.
Well, maybe you should go back to it. Wasn't Kirsten Dunst in that movie? Like a young Kirsten Dunst?
You tell me. Apparently you've been fucking watching it so fucking recently, you're asking me. Fucking, I thought they were all bear people, and you're just like, oh, Bill, is that one of Kirsten Dunst's most prominent roles? I don't fucking know.
I watched it a lot when I was a kid, and so I remember things.
I know Interview with a Vampire. That's what I know. I know she was in that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and what was that other movie she was in?
Spider-Man? Maybe?
No.
That little indie film, Spider-Man?
Robin Williams, fucking, was she in Jumanji? Was she one of the kids in Jumanji, or no?
Oh, I think she was one of the kids in Jumanji, actually, but I didn't just realize that until you just mentioned it. But yeah, no, she definitely was that little girl in Jumanji.
You know what freaked me out recently was back during the Christmas season when I realized that Scarlett Johansson was the big sister in Home Alone 3.
Well, I haven't watched Home Alone 3 since I was homesick one day, and it was on TV, and I had nothing else to watch, which is essentially the plot of that film.
Yeah, Home Alone 3 was always my least favorite, and this was back in the time before we had a 4 and 5 and however.
What is 4 and what are 4 and 5? Like, I don't understand how they can be things.
I think they're like prequels or something. I don't know. I don't give a fuck. I haven't seen them.
So
they're
they
terrible.
Like recast Kevin, where he's like.
I guess.
Or do they recast the other sister, like the other siblings, and then do them as the main characters?
I think one of them is actually about Buzz or some shit. I don't know.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Point is, back in the days, the ancient times, when we only had 3 Home Alone movies, it was always my least favorite. But watching it again this past Christmas, I think it's a little underrated. I think it has some of the best traps and gags in the series. The story's fucking bullshit.
It was written by John Hughes. I almost said Tom Hughes. I don't know if that's even a real person.
Written by Tom Hughes, John's less popular brother.
Yeah, played by Gene Wilder.
I don't know why this is being narrated by one of the Beatles.
Yeah, you suddenly just dropped it right down to Ringo or John. John, maybe. Sounds a little bit more like John, to be honest.
I don't remember which one it was, but John Cleese, I saw an interview with him where he was talking about how they made Life of Brian, I think it was. And nobody wanted to fund it. And one of the Beatles actually put down the money to fund the movie. I don't remember which one it was at the time.
There's always a wild story when one of the Beatles is like, I'm just going to put money in this, and people are like, what?
And they asked him, they're like, why are you...
still have money?
And they asked him, they're like, why are you funding our movie or something? And I wish I could remember which one it was.
Or something.
But I wish I could remember which Beatle it was. But he just goes, I want to see the movie. And I thought that was fucking...
That's brilliant. I wish stuff like that happened now, where just like a Beatle decides to to produce a film. Not even produce it, just to give them necessary finances. Why couldn't Guillermo del Toro just rock up to like Paul McCartney and be like, "Hey man, listen, do you want to see Hellboy 3?" And Paul McCartney would be like, "Yeah, I'd watch Hellboy 3." Well, can you fucking give me the money? I mean, I guess. Yes, I could give it to any number of charities that would save people's lives, but fuck it, I'll give it to Hellboy 3.
Celebrities used to do, crazy, cool shit with their money. Nowadays, it's just fucking...
Oh, it's just charities and...
Just fucking Drake running around throwing out $1 million to a bunch of poor people. No, you go out there and buy a monkey.
No, you go out there and create your own little island of genetically engineered extinct animals. That's what I want.
Michael Jackson bought the remains of the Elephant Man. What are you doing with your life?
Oh, I forgot about that. That's only one of the many wild things he did. I remember there was an episode of Fresh Prince where Will is like describing this wild theme park experience they're gonna have, and then Will, his grandmother is like, "Will, again, we're not breaking into Michael Jackson's house." And I was like, oh, that's great. That's a great joke. Only works back then. Now,
Right.
that's filled with, and you know, it's hilarious in retrospect to somebody like you or me, but to a general populace person now, that's like, isn't he dead? And didn't he touch a bunch of kids there? Who knows? We'll never know. He's dead.
Right. Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
He's as dead as Spider-Man.
No, he's way more dead than that, because Spider-Man's probably going to get brought back to life.
You're probably right. And Michael Jackson, he's got a few hundred years before we get the technology down to bring old pop stars back to life.
So what if instead of Jurassic Park, there's like a pop star park where it's just like for various musicians that have just been, maybe not even just musicians, maybe stand-up comedians, maybe they bring back Carlin, maybe they bring back
This mosquito bit Tupac Shakur.
Yeah, like it's gotta be, because it has to be like almost like public domain accessible like sources of their DNA, and then maybe you can get away with it like Jurassic Park, like because the dinosaurs can't sue InGen for cloning them because they're extinct.
Where did you get Elvis's DNA? Oh, we just pieced it together from all over Las Vegas.
We just found various. We could just you could just say you just found various kids of his and just mix their DNA together and bam.
Basically, if you take any given person from Las Vegas, there's probably a little bit of Elvis in there. It's like Genghis Khan.
Yeah. Well, you could do like exactly. You could do Genghis Khan too by that same method. I'm sure you could. I'm sure like 1,000 years, like maybe not even that far. Like this could be a thing.
And these poor clone kids would just be raised to be impersonators of the person they were cloned from.
They'd be like the robots in Westworld. They'd essentially think that they were these, period people, and then suddenly realize that their lives are so horrible in reality.
You'd have to keep cloning them, and as soon as the previous clone got too old to play the part anymore, you'd take them out back and shoot them in the head.
Right. Well, they probably would have. You would want you'd have to accelerate the aging too, because you'd want to open the park as soon as possible, like in Jurassic
Except for
Park.
the Elvis clones, you could keep the Elvis clones around, because then you could be like, here's Ed Sullivan Elvis, and here's fat Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well,
Elvis.
do you have multiple incarnations of each celebrity? Or is the world ready for that kind of madness, where they're like different? Like we have an Elvis when he was still young, and it's almost like the animatronic like history tours you can go on at various amusement parks and museums and stuff, but like they're real people.
There's like a boat ride you go on, and the cave is just nothing but every single doctor.
But we've genetically engineered like William Hartnell and a young Tom Baker. And of course, I think that would be the attraction that would break down the most, because the doctors would always be escaping. They'd be like the velociraptors, constantly getting out, terrorizing the public, taking them on insane adventures.
Do you remember the sounds they made? I try not to.
Yeah, they all had really, really grating British accents. No, huh?
One of them kept offering me a jelly baby. I don't know what that is.
One of them was Scottish. That was fun. We were talking about mice brains. So I want to find out what they've done.
What have they done?
Researchers have been growing human brain organoids. Organoids! No, sorry. In the lab for a while. Coaxing human stem cells to develop into structures that resemble developing human brains. But the size of these have been restricted, as the cells cannot get enough nutrients because they're putting them in fucking mice. Like,
wait. In the author's profile picture there, is that just a picture of his dog blown up to like huge proportions?
It looks almost like a painting of a dog on the wall.
Or does he have like a giant dog?
No, I think it's like I think it's either what you said, or it's like a mural of another dog that just kind of happens to look similar enough to his dog.
Interesting. It threw me for a loop, because I was like, Thor could ride that fucking thing. Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh,
look at that
God.
dog.
He could finally get what he's always wanted. Anyway, listen to me and my bad impersonations of 80s animated series intros. Now, so as they were saying, they weren't able to get enough nutrients because they're fucking mice. One of the researchers, however, recently has managed to get their mini brains to grow their own blood vessels, which will hopefully allow them to get over the this issue and grow the brains into larger organoids. But But the latest study has taken these smaller organoids and implanted them into over 200 mouse brains. Holy fuck, that's a lot. Can you imagine if you had to, like, remake your brain, but it was assorted through 200 different mice? Could you do that? Could you open them all up and claim what you had to get?
I don't know. All I know is that this sounds like the prologue to a Michael Crichton novel, and I'm suddenly very invested.
It does. I'm doing a shitty job of narrating it, but that shows the quality of the writing. Around 80% of these took, and within 14 days, they had already developed a complex network of vessels, sent out axons to surrounding mouse brain tissue, and were even firing in sync with the natural mouse brains, showing quite clearly that the two tissues were communicating. That's fucking creepy, that like a human brain, a little tiny human brain, or a collection of human brain cells, I guess is the better way to put it, is like hanging out inside of a mouse, and there's a mouse brain in there, and they're talking to each other like, what the fuck's going on? Why are we talking to each other?
So is the human brain like a separate entity, or have they merged to form like a super brain?
It's alien tissue. It's just compatible.
Interesting.
It's essentially like the Venom symbiote.
So can the mice use the human brain cells to increase their own intelligence? Are we getting into a Planet of the Mice situation?
No, because it's like talking to. I guess if they listen to the voice inside their head, but if they don't listen to it, it might just drive them mad. You know, they would have to first accept that the voice speaking to them is more intelligent.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about.
I don't think that human brain has any control over the actual motor skills, unless it does. Who knows?
So then I don't have to worry about this turning into a planet where mice evolved from men.
Maybe you do. Maybe you should be worried. That's the way you prevent it, is by worrying about it. The research, despite sounding fairly extreme, could have some really significant applications. One of them are main reasons for testing the viability of inserting small bits of brain into the heads of mice is that one day they could be used as brain repair kits. The just crack open a mouse and you can fix any guy's brain. The scientists envision using these little pieces of cortex to patch up human brains that have been damaged or injured, hopefully helping to restore function. Obviously, that is likely to be a long way off, but this work is an incredible starting point that lays down some of the basics and provides proof of concept, if nothing else. So what do you think, Dylan? Are you going to rely on cracking open some mice to save your brain if, like, you get... So let's say...
Could they also use this technology to like, amplify the brains of, like, stupid people or people with, like, developmental issues? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that could happen?
I don't think that's how that works. Just going out on a limb. Don't think that's how that works. But anyway... Can
we take a regular janitor and turn him into the leader? That's all I want to know.
I think that requires toxic waste. I think the more interesting takeaway, though, is that we can put alien human tissue into a mouse, and it will communicate with it like it was just part of the mouse brain. And it's not attacking it like it's, it's an alien tissue that's affecting the immune system.
Well, I wonder if you put alien human brain tissue into another human, what that human would experience. You know what I mean?
Well, we've never been allowed to try it. Well, I think we probably have in small capacities, but I don't think we've been able to try it in the capacity of putting a small human brain inside of another human and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
That's what I think this is building to, maybe.
Would that other brain become sentient, or would it just be like a mass of, like, just firing neurons trying to figure out?
I feel like that's the closest we would ever get to a real-life MODOK.
Interesting.
I think that's how you do, like, a MCU MODOK. You do his origin as, like... You do it the same. He was a tragic little man who fell in love, and then a bunch of people were like, hey, we're going to do an experiment on you. And he was like, no! And then he gets turned into a big brain, and then that's why he's got to be in the suit, because he's got to be protected. He's almost like Dr. Wheelo from the Dragon Ball Z movie World's Strongest. But
I'd rather we just figured out a way to do the whole Jim Carrey thing from Batman Forever and just, like, suck up brain waves through, like, the internet or some shit.
I feel like maybe we should just leave the mice alone. Just let them live their mice lives. and stop putting brains inside of them. So Dylan, did I send this one to you? No, I did not. So let's move on. We're gonna.
You only sent me the mouse brains.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's enough. So this one has the title. There was a mysterious human-like statue found in Siberia, and apparently it's a lot older than the pyramids, and we're gonna find out why it looks so weird. It does look rather odd. It makes you wonder, like, what the people back then were thinking, like why they were like, let's make this guy look really uncomfortable, and like he's maybe constipated or getting his dick sucked.
It kind of looks like an alien.
Yeah, well, that's what also that's why I think it's maybe drawn up some attention here, is that it looks almost like a justification for ancient alien theory.
What if this is just the remains of a dead brute?
This is also Josh Davis. What is it with this fuck?
This is giant dogs. I mean, you're the one who keeps responding to his articles.
You know what,
still,
Dylan?
So you tell.
I resent your implication that I'm a fan of Josh Davis. Love you, Josh Davis. What were you gonna say? Go on.
I don't know. I'm just looking at this shit.
At the end of, aren't we all? So, Dylan, the demons from outer space. We're back into it. They found a weird statue. It's older than the pyramids. The point I was making before we were interrupted was that it's crazy to think about how old not only the pyramids are, but how old just the Egyptian civilization was. Because if you think back to, like, you know, I remember there was some statistic I learned in high school. I'm going to try my best to remember. Maybe you can help me out. Where Cleopatra is closer to the iPhone than she was to the actual construction of the pyramids.
Yes, that's like one of my favorite Egyptology factoids. We are closer time-wise to Cleopatra's time than she was to her ancestors' building of the pyramids. That's right. How fucking
Which
long.
Makes sense to me. She came in when Egypt was a well-established thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, the Roman Empire was already a thing at that point, and she was basically a vassal.
There were already Greek. There were already Greek settlements in Egypt, and they were banging, and there's all kinds of.
Her grandfather or whatever, I think, was one of Alexander the Great's generals or something. Basically, there was a Greek guy named Ptolemy I think it was Ptolemy. He was one of Alexander the Great's guys, and then after Alexander the Great died and didn't leave he never did proclaim who his heir would be. So all the people who worked under him turned on each other, and so they each got different parts of his empire. It basically split up, and this was the guy who got Egypt. And then that's the line that Cleopatra descends from. But,
So this is older than that. This is twice as old as that, apparently. So, and I mean, they talk about how when the pyramids were constructed, mammoths must have still been walking the earth. That's how long ago they must have been constructed, which is...
Yeah, and I thought that was fucking crazy. I thought that was insane when I watched 10,000 BC, but apparently... you were slightly right. Get that guy whose name I forget.
Yeah, well, it's not. They were not in walking distance, though.
No, but they were around. I was.
You could have. Yeah, sure. You could have gone to North America and killed some mammoths and then brought them to Egypt. Yeah, sure.
The first time I watched that movie, I was like, they weren't still around. And then it was almost like in a movie. Somebody came and whispered in my ear, and I was like, oh, they were around.
It's insane. It's insane how, a little bit of civilization sparks a whole lot of ego.
And there was that one island where after all the mammoths had died out all around the rest of the world, there was this one island where they were still existed for a while. You know what I'm talking about?
Literal Ice Age park.
Yeah. And then I guess they just died off because it takes a lot of resources to feed a mammoth.
Well, I'm sure they initially shrunk into something that was not a mammoth, and then they probably died off.
There's an elephant sanctuary somewhere in Tennessee that I'd like to see sometime, and it's
weird. That's weird. That's a weird statement. There's an elephant sanctuary in Tennessee, and I know that it's not weird. There's animal parks in every state, but
yeah,
it's a weird statement.
Because last time we went to the Nashville Zoo last year, they had always had elephants. That was always like one of the big highlights. Like, oh, let's go up the fucking hill, and it was a fucking trek to get up there and see the elephant enclosure. And this time the elephants were all gone because they had all retired, and they were getting that area ready to put in some rhinos or some shit.
The JT Barnum treatment where they were being shot in the back alley.
But well, we asked somebody like, hey, what happened to the rhinos? And they're like, oh, they've all retired. And I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't even know elephants retired. Like, I just thought they stayed in the zoo until they died, but apparently not. And she was like, and they've all gone to the such and such elephant sanctuary in so and so Tennessee, and that was a fucking blow to my mind. I didn't know there was a fucking elephant sanctuary in my state somewhere. Like that was an insane bit of information for me.
It is definitely it's a bit of an oxymoron.
I think about it sometimes. I'm like, how much food they must go through just feeding all these old prima donna elephants, ex-showbiz elephants.
That's the thing. Like it's you know, we talked about it when we read that apes book, Firestorm.
Just a bunch of fucking old senile fucking Sunset Boulevard elephants sitting around going, when I was the main star of the Barnum and Bailey circus. One time I escaped in Hawaii and stepped on a mat. You know, like, it's insane.
But we talked about this when we reviewed that apes book, Firestorm.
I wonder if
it's going to get to where all the big African mammals, and you know, elephants aren't just African. There's some in Indonesia as well. The only way that they're going to survive is by existing in other parts of the world, in all the American zoos and London zoos and all the animal parks around the world. That'll be their way of surviving.
We'll have to start breeding them aggressively to keep them from going extinct.
We'll have to start breeding them for military combat.
That'll be a nice little market though that we could exploit. Like, hey, we've got the only elephants in the world. You want one? We'll breed one for you.
I feel like we're there already. So I want to find out about this wood thing. This idol was actually first uncovered in 1894, buried under 4 meters, that's 13 feet, of peat in the bog of Shakir. Oh, it was in a bog, that's why. It was in a peat bog. Which gives the statuette its common name, the Shigir idol. Uncovered in sections, it was finally pieced together in 1914, revealing that it would once have stood an impressive 17 feet tall. Although not all the pieces of statues survive. Yeah, I thought this was like a recent thing.
This thing, Jesus. This thing's been around since... Okay. All right.
Yet it was not until 100 years later that advances in technology allowed researchers to finally test the incredible piece of art.
Oh, okay.
And gain an estimate of just how old it was. So now, it's only now that we understand how old it is. By
apparently we've known since 2014. Why is this news so delayed?
Yeah, that's... By radiocarbon dating 2 sections of the idol, they determined that it was about 9,800 years old. At the time, this was extraordinary, and many academics rejected this finding as being impossibly old for a wooden object. Radiocarbon dating back then, however, was clunky and not particularly precise, coupled with the fact that the first test sampled just 2 bits of the Shigir idol. Researchers wanted to re-examine the statue. They took cores of the wood to make sure that they were uncontaminated over the last century. Using modern techniques, they have revealed that the idol was carved from just a single larch wood log, some 11,600 years ago. This is over twice as old as the pyramids.
So they know for a fact that it was carved.
From one piece of wood, yeah. It's not like it was assembled.
Because I was going to say, do you think it's at all possible that this is just a fucking piece of wood, and the fact that it looks like a person is just like a coincidence, like how you look at a piece of toast and you see Jesus, you know?
Nah, yeah, it was carved. It's a weird looking thing too. God knows whoever made this, what was going through their fucking weird primitive brains.
Clearly, it is an image of our alien overlords who implanted our DNA into
Obviously,
chimpanzees.
But why did they make them look so fucking weird?
Maybe they looked that way. They're fucking aliens. They implanted a bit of their DNA into chimpanzees.
I feel like you would have given them a better looking face. Made them not look like they were getting their alien dick sucked.
And they used us as slave labor to mine the gold that they needed to fly their spaceships. Aren't you familiar with the story? And then
I read it.
And then they went back off to the planet Hoojamafucket, and
I feel like that's a commentary down the road for us, Battlefield Earth. It's been inevitable.
No, that's like an actual. Is it the fucking? What do they call them? Like this is an actual like theory that people believe in, like these ancient aliens.
I'm sure it is.
Like they needed gold for some fucking reason. What's the planet called? There's a name for it. Fuck. I don't know. I'm not into the whole. I'm not into the whole chariots of fire, crazy hair, aliens thing.
No, I never really. I was always of the Ian Malcolm mindset of alien life creating our life is just avoiding the issue. This suggests that the culture of producing these huge, symbolic, and presumably ritualistic pieces of artwork did not originate in one place as the Ice Age receded, but sprung up at multiple centers around the same time. What led to this sudden development and flare of artistic or religious devotion is still not fully understood, but asks intriguing questions about our culture and beliefs. It's the same idea as to why a bunch of different cultures built pyramids around the same time. It's just, that's what the human imagination comes up with when they want to do something impressive, in my opinion.
Because that's what they were taught by the predators.
Right, well that too, but I'm saying they also think it looks cool. So that was that weird statue, Dylan. That was definitely interesting. I definitely think that there's a creepy Quatermass movie in there, or some kind of creepy film about the bizarre origins of man.
Didn't you say it was found in like Siberia or some shit?
Yeah.
Who the fuck was just like? Who the fuck was in Siberia in the fucking year, however many ago, and was carving a weird Like, who the fuck did this? I want to know. I want to know the artist. I want to get to know their thought process here.
I agree with you. I just want to know why they look like they're getting their dick sucked. And once you answer that question, I feel like all the other questions are kind of, they're unnecessary. So Dylan,
I mean, maybe it was a portrait of a.
I am absolutely okay with that kind of artistic expression. I just need to make sure that I just need to be clear.
It's like that dead guy from Pompeii. He probably wasn't jerking off, but I just need to believe in my heart that he was.
But if he was, it would make so much more sense. That's why.
That he saw an ash cloud approaching and was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go out like a champ." And then he came and he went.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be distracted. I was looking at other articles that we're going to talk about. So this will probably be the second to last one. Maybe we'll do two more after this. We'll see how much time we have. We'll see how much time this one kills.
Oh yeah, I remember when this article broke. This is crazy.
So paying a heavy price for loving the Neanderthals.
And you know what? Who could blame us? I mean, look at those faces.
Look at those fucking rambunctious, thick-ass homegirls. Damn, son, how could you not plow that ass?
It's caveman times. Life is hard. Food is minimal.
Your dick is hard.
There are like giant deer and saber-toothed cats all over the place.
There's cave lions and maybe a couple of dinosaurs still running around that we haven't put together. We're still alive back then.
You had a hard day at the rock quarry, your Brontosaurus broke down, you didn't get paid very much. And sometimes
fucking your wife.
You can't be too choosy about who you club over the head and drag back to your shack,
Especially when your wife is banging Mr. Slate.
Exactly.
So one of the biggest surprises about our evolution revealed, this is a guest author. This actually has the potential to be good. One of the biggest surprises about our evolution revealed over just the last decades is the extent to which our ancestors engage in amorous congress with our evolutionary cousins. Bonking the Neanderthals, it seems, I love this guy. I like this guy already. It seems was a bit of a pastime for the distant relatives. It happened many times in Siberia, East Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, and across a long period between 100,000 and 40,000 years ago. So that's the time frame we're working with. So not like 50 years ago. It wasn't the baby boomers. In reality, we have no idea.
Sometimes you just get a dose of that Neanderthal love,
I mean,
Neanderthal
who can help it?
Neanderthal love is a powerful emotion, boy.
In reality, we have no idea, of course, how many times it occurred, nor the circumstances in which it happened, who instigated it, us or them. Unbelievable.
We like to think of it as our proud,
Who
strong...
started it? Did you text him or did he text you?
We like to think of it as our proud, strong, smart Cro-Magnon ancestors taking advantage of the poor, dumb Neanderthals. But it could have just been like the bigger, stronger Neanderthals raping a bunch of Cro-Magnons
That's possible, too.
until they died out from being stupid.
Well, until a bunch of Cro-Magnon men were like, hey, we don't like this anymore.
And then they killed them.
Was it consensual? Did they pair for life? Or was it a casual fling? That would be my question. Like, is it like when those seals fuck penguins in Antarctica? Or do they...
No, listen.
Or could they produce children?
I feel like it's like this, you know. You wouldn't get drunk back then because alcohol wasn't a thing. But you know, you eat the wrong plant.
I mean, you could ferment fruit and it could turn into alcohol.
You eat the right plant, you get a little woozy, and then you wake up and you realize that you're next to a Neanderthal. It's like that whole Jim Jeffries bit about waking up next to the two, and you. And then you perform the caveman walk of shame, which is much like the modern walk of shame, but a lot more dangerous because there are predators.
Now the consequences of interbreeding for us today are becoming all too clear. From studies of the genome, theirs and ours, ancient and modern.
From studies of the genome of Donald Trump, we have discovered
that we still have shrews surviving in modern-day society. Human-sized shrews. No, somewhere between 1.5% and 2.1% of your genome was inherited from the Neanderthals, assuming your ancestry was non-African, of course. East Asians typically have more Neanderthal DNA because their ancestors partook in a little more afternoon delight than the rest of ours did, because they were cooler than us.
Oh, East Asians. Huh. Not us Caucasians. Don't look at us.
No, we didn't cock enough, apparently. East Asian... Oh, sorry. For indigenous people living around eastern Indonesia and in New Guinea and Australia, their ancestors also took a shine to the Denisovans. In their genomes, we find an extra 4% to 6% inherited from this mysterious species.
Isn't that the one that was all short, like the Hobbit people?
You tell me. So were they like midget fuckers? They were.
Yeah.
They loved them little people.
I mean, listen, Peter Dinklage needs love too.
I liked him in Infinity War. So far, archaeologists have found just 2 finger bones and a tooth from the Denisovans. That's interesting. To think that like a bunch of our, somewhat modern men fucked them, and then now they're extinct, and we know nothing about them. Thousands of kilometers away from New Guinea and southern Siberia, of all places. That shows how old they are. Yet the fact that the earliest New Guineans mated with the Denisovans over 4,400 years ago, as revealed by their DNA, suggests that all the action happened in the tropical climes of Oceania, not icy Siberia. So it all happened like where we expected it to. Don't fret if your ancestry is African, though. Your ancestors found another human species or two to bonk. Surprisingly, the genomes of the West African Biaka and Baka, so-called pygmy people, have revealed DNA from a completely unknown species, which found its way into the human genome only 9,000 years ago. Mermaids. No. Other studies have found much wider evidence for interbreeding across Africa, occurring some around 3,500 years ago. It's fun to think about our surprisingly mixed heritage as a species, and may be even fun to poke fun at a friend or two for their seemingly excessive amounts of Neanderthal DNA. Yeah, Dylan. Ha! No.
You and I
didn't have that fun. I didn't have that much fun.
You and I have very similar genetic backgrounds. However, our East Asian listeners, haha, you are statistically...
You are the ones who are the Neanderthal fuckers.
Statistically more than us, who probably did it too.
That's definitely going to be the description of this podcast. You are the ones who are the Neanderthal fuckers.
You assholes. It makes sense.
Yeah, you fucked them right up their Neanderthal butts, didn't you? Neanderthal DNA is associated with an increased risk of developing skin corns and calicities, mood disorders.
I feel like you can see it in some people. Like, you just look at them and you're like, yeah, you got some Neanderthal in you.
Well done. Aren't you a fucking regular anthropologist? Mood disorders and depression, overweight and obesity, upper respiratory and urinary tract infections, incontinence, hardening of the arteries, and even smoking. Huh.
Holy shit.
Definitely sounds like I got some Neanderthal DNA.
Yeah. Wow.
Then there's those immediate risks that come with casual sex with your own, or in this case, another species. Now this, I must tell you...
Were Neanderthals just like walking cancer cells? Because it kind of sounds like they have all of the diseases.
That's why they were like the Hulk, yeah.
Only we had been smarter back then. We could have been like, hey, don't fuck that. That's full of diseases. You're not gonna regret it, but your great
fall off.
You're not gonna regret it, but your great grand niece is really gonna suffer.
So yeah, parasites, bacteria. So basically, they're just saying, don't fuck another species. It's probably not gonna go well for you.
Yeah, especially now since we're the only hominids left. But you know, some people are into horses.
And that's why they suggested that, like, that's likely why they went extinct, maybe. It's not that we wiped them out, it's probably because of disease. When you fuck in between species, you know, the difference in genetic material might lead to a drastic gap in immunity. It's the same thing as, like, when we travel to the New World. The diseases we brought there devastated, and the diseases we brought back devastated, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same idea, but on a grander scale because they're different species.
Also, don't fuck a horse. That's a bad idea. You can't get consent from
a horse. He knows, child. He knows.
You can't get consent from a horse because they always say nay.
All right, Dylan. So why don't we move on to the final article of the... Well, I mean, first of all, would you have fucked a Neanderthal chick? I mean, yeah, I know you would have. But would you have enjoyed it?
I have to go shoot myself now. No, fuck a Neanderthal chick. I mean, I don't know. Is it the one in this picture? Because that's...
If that's what you want, man, I'll give it to you.
I can't even tell if that is a chick.
You can go into that. I mean, you'll find out. You go into that museum, you lift up that, you know, that fucking fur skirt, and you'll find out.
They're like dwarves. You can't tell the women apart from the men, which leads to the misconception that there are no dwarf women.
Or that we're all gay.
And that Neanderthals just spring out of holes in the ground.
It's possible. I just find it fascinating that we have, you know, DNA that comes from Neanderthals, and that's where some of our diseases come from, because we decided to fuck them.
That's an interesting question, though. Like, if there were still other hominid species, would we still be fucking them? Like, would society deem that?
We probably shouldn't, given this article, because we would get a lot more diseases.
Probably not. It would be like there would be this long-standing tradition of humans fucking other hominid species, and then in that alternate version of 2018, this article would come out, and like a bunch of like organizations for people who are attracted to the Neanderthals would come out and say, this article is against our sexuality, blah, 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 and it would be a whole thing.
But would those people just be like the people who are like, I should be able to fuck a child?
Yeah, exactly. It would be like NAMBLA.
Ugh. All right, Dylan. Well, moving on from that, we're going to talk about the big science news that's come out recently. This is the thing that's been on all the big sites, so this should be no surprise to you if you keep up with this shit. We're going to talk about the plumes of water that have erupted from Europa's ocean, found by a previously defunct NASA spacecraft. So that was the moon that this ocean is apparently existing on.
For a second, I thought you were going to say plumes of water that erupted from Uranus. It sounded like that's what you were saying.
I know. I have had a lot of experience with that lately. I can tell you that much. So, Dylan, scientists have made a groundbreaking discovery of a plume of water on Jupiter's moon, Europa, hidden in decades-old data from NASA's Galileo spacecraft, and it could have important implications in the search for life. In a paper published in Nature Astronomy, a team led by... God knows how this guy's fucking name is pronounced. XJ.
Wait. Where is he? Where is it? Which?
Second paragraph. I mean, it should be pretty obvious which one it is.
Oh, that's like a Chinese name
We're
or
just
something.
oh, really? Is it?
I think so. It looks Chinese or some other form of Asian.
I'm just calling him XJ. So
It kind of looks like
XJ from the
Jean
universe.
Jean Yi, something.
He's from the University of Michigan, though. He described how they reanalyzed data from the Galileo mission, which orbited Jupiter from 1995 to 2003, the best years of my life. And they found that on December 16th...
Such a short period of our lives.
And they found that on December 16th, 1997, the spacecraft appears to have flown straight through a plume on Europa, which may have been ejected from a suspected ocean beneath its icy surface. Like we've said, it has never been confirmed to actually exist, but it's probably there. This corroborates with previous findings from the Hubble that suggests Europa is ejecting plumes. Ooh, sexy. We deem this a very compelling evidence that Europa does possess plumes. Interesting. Jha told IFL Science, "We believe the spacecraft has gone through a plume proper."
As opposed to an uneducated plume who just sort of sits around the house all day. A proper plume who is a society gal who. So there's plumes. That's nice.
It's nice to know that there's a lot of plumes going on out there, isn't there? That there's not just plumes being ejected from the Earth.
I like how there's just pictures.
Plumes.
I like how there's pictures of Europa further down in the article, and there's just a little arrow pointing to it that says, "There's a plume, right there. You see it? You see the plume?"
So apparently, the reason why it hasn't been found until now, the criticism is that you might say it's a lack of thinking outside the box. William Kurth from the University of Iowa, one of the scientists on Galileo mission and co-author on this latest paper, told IFL Science. But on the other hand, had we made a point of going out on a limb, I believe even myself would have thought it was highly speculative. Also, he's talking shit. Maybe not. One of the most intriguing things about the flyby was the location of the suspected plume. The team thinks it was coming from a region near a big crater on Europa called Pewil Crater, which is just south of the moon's equator, and this is a similar region to where Hubble saw its plumes before. This suggests that it is some sort of thermal anomaly in this area, from which Europa is emitting plumes. It's unclear at the moment how continuous this process is, though, and that could be vital to scientists on 2 upcoming missions. Some see Enceladus, that's another of Jupiter's moons, as a better bet for the search for life, as its plumes from its south pole appear to be continuous, meaning there's probably more ocean there, I guess. While that case can be argued, the fact remains that there are 2 upcoming missions planned for Europa and none for Enceladus. In the early 2020s, NASA is planning to send a mission to Europa called the Europa Clipper. This will perform 45 flybys of the moon, many of which will be below that of Galileo's E12 pass. If the plumes are there, and with its instrumentation on board, Clipper could directly sample them. An ESA mission is heading into Europa, called the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, JUICE, good name. It's intended to launch in 2022. Again, it has the instruments necessary to directly sample in plumes.
You ever say a word so many times that it loses its meaning? Because that's how I feel. That's how I feel about plume right now.
What is a plume anyway? Define it. Define the word plume.
I think it's like when a geyser goes off and you get like that big spray of water that goes up in the air. I think that's a plume.
Okay.
Which, by the way, one of those over in Yellowstone's been going crazy.
I think
lately.
it's also like when a wave crashes and like there's just misty spray. I think it's a plume as well.
Yeah, plume is one of those weird words. You say it more than 5 times in a row, and it just sort of starts to sound weird.
Say your name or think about your name that many times, and suddenly you hate it, and you're just like, this no longer has any meaning.
The word fork is like that for me. Like it's such a weird word to me.
Why?
Like, I don't know.
Why is that weirder than any other word? I love Thor's line in Infinity War where he's like, all words are made up because it's true.
It is true, and you never expect that level of philosophy to come from Thor. But no.
Sometimes you do, though. That's what I love about him. Is like, yeah, I love that moment where it's like, only an idiot would leave it with the Collector, or a genius.
Or a genius.
I love that line. He's so
idiot. idiot, as it turned out.
Yeah, it turned out to be a bad move. Pretty much the stones were put in places where it was pretty easy for Thanos to get them. A dude's head, a necklace,
a cliff,
a crazy man's, guarded by a really bad dude, guarded by a Nazi, superpowered Hitler, and then
ex-Nazi. I think the 100 Years of Solitude have really mellowed him out.
And then there was the fucking then there was the fucking Xandar. Then there was Glenn Close. She couldn't even keep it for a fucking minute.
I was so hoping that we would get a scene of him attacking Xandar. I wanted to see Glenn Close and John C. Reilly fucking bite the dust.
That would have been fun.
And then he takes the stone. I get that it's already a long movie though, and there's nowhere to put it. I would be fascinated to know if there's like a deleted scene, like on the Blu-ray. Like, here's the Xandar sequence we had to cut out.
But do you think it'll tell us if there's life on this planet? Not on the planet, on the moon of Europa. So what do you think, D? Is this our best bet in the search for life, or do you think that we should be looking elsewhere?
I mean, as far as
do you think that we should be looking at all?
As far as we can tell, based on what we know about how life evolved on this planet, water is always a good sign. I feel like it's the only thing that this planet has going for it, though, and I feel like life might require more than one factor. I feel like sometimes we get so hung up on there's water there might be life.
Yeah, but if there's an ocean under the ice, that would be different, because then there might be resources at the bottom of it.
I mean, anything that evolved there is probably, similar to like extremophiles on Earth that, can survive in like super inhospitable conditions because...
But if it's been doing that for a long time, who knows, man?
Yeah.
There could be some weird fucking underwater fucking shit down there. Some anglerfish-esque aliens. That'd be awesome.
Maybe we could take a journey to the center of Europa and find a fucking lost world.
Better than journeying to the center of Uranus.
Oh.
That was an old joke. I apologize. I'm excited. I get excited by stuff like this, though. I'm just happy we're still
You get excited by Uranus?
No, by Europa, Dylan.
Right.
No, but I get excited because it just means that we're still fucking trying with NASA and with space exploration, you know?
Yeah, they're like, you know what, Elon Musk is going to beat us, but we're going to try anyway. They haven't shot a car into space yet.
Oh, but damn it, they've named his car a celestial body.
Have they?
Yeah.
That's official.
It has an official ranking as a celestial body.
Good, I'm glad that a Tesla has been added to the cosmos.
I remember I remember we talked about it on the show, and if you read the breakdown, it's somewhat like they kind of throw shade at it, like very subtly.
I like to think that it'll float off into space and like it'll attract other objects to it slowly over time and build up into it.
They're playing great tunes.
And it'll slowly build into a giant mass of just space junk that is clumped together. And then eventually, millions from years from now, it'll crash into an inhabited planet and wipe them off the face.
Wasn't that the origin of Ego and Guardians 2?
No, that was the origin of like the Big Getty star from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too.
Ego is a celestial who, for some reason, was left out on his own when he was born. And so he learned how to use his powers, and he constructed a planet around himself. Unlike the other Celestials who made like those big suits of armor for themselves to travel around in, he became a planet instead. And then he made the little avatar of himself to go off and explore the universe. I don't know how he found any of that information out. I don't know if he even actually is a Celestial, or if he just found out that they existed and decided, no, I'm probably one of those. Because it's not like he had anybody in his life to be like, you're a Celestial, son,
Right. It's interesting to think about things that aren't real, isn't it?
I also want to know if they're still alive in the MCU continuity, because we know that there was one that was beheaded. That's what Nowhere is. But there was a recent thing in the comics where like there was this ancient war between them and this other race, and most of the Celestials got killed off. And I wonder if that's the case in the MCU version of the universe, because so far we haven't seen any space giants floating around fucking shit up. So I don't know.
Unfortunately.
Oh, I'd love it if we got a Celestial. Fuck, it'd be great. Like one that's actually there doing things.
Do you feel like you have to do Galactus first now, so that way we can establish that and say that he's not a Celestial, so that way when we do the Celestial, people don't get confused?
I don't know. Seeing as much as I would love to do that storyline where the celestial host comes to Earth to decide whether it should be destroyed or not, it's awful similar to the Galactus thing. And then
That's the thing. I would rather get Galactus like done properly.
Yeah, so you can't adapt that celestial story because it's too similar to like the classic Galactus story that everybody knows. So you should probably pick it. I mean, they've done tons of shit though in the comics, so you could put them anywhere. Or just fuck the comics and make some shit up. I don't give a shit. I'm not one of those people.
You could just create a new thing.
You could be original.
You could make wholly original content, but nah, nobody's gonna go to see that.
What? Also, because in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline in the comics, when Thanos gets all the stones together, when he gets good and stoned, all the other cosmic entities, understandably become threatened by this, and they all come to try and fuck his shit up, including
they all get jealous of his high. They gotta get on his level.
Including some Celestials. So really, Avengers 4 should start with like a bunch of Celestials trying to kill Thanos.
That would be nice, as if they addressed that. Because Thanos is just kind of like arbitrarily he's the strongest being in the MCU seemingly. That's the status we're left with in Infinity War.
They might not even bother, though, is the thing.
But we need that questioned, because I don't think that he is the strongest being in the MCU. He can't be. That would be dumb. There should be stronger beings out there.
We still don't even know if he would have been able to beat the Hulk if he hadn't had the Power Stone on him at the time.
I don't know that he probably could have.
I don't know what base Thanos is like, and it's all confusing anyway because all the characters in the MCU are powered way down from what they were in the comics. They're not nearly as powerful as they are on the page, because you need stakes to be a thing.
Yeah. Well, before we fall down this rabbit hole anymore, I think that's gonna do it for the science side of things on this week's episode of the Demons from Outer Space. Definitely covered some interesting ground tonight. Led to some interesting tangents, as always. Glad we were able to cover the NASA thing. Hopefully, more developments will come on that. When they announced that, they fucking baited everybody so much. They were like, "Oh, there's going to be a huge announcement about the search for life on Monday."
They do that. Like, there was one last year, too, at some point, and I don't remember what the announcement was, but it was something, not that impressive. But they played it up beforehand, like, there's going to be a huge announcement tomorrow from NASA about the search, and you're sitting here thinking, oh, God, have they landed?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking, like, oh, has it finally happened? Thank God, I need something to distract me from how much I hate the president. Oh, shit.
Have we made first contact? Can they take me away from this shitty planet? Like, that's what you're waiting for. And then it turns out it's just like, nah, there's like water on a moon. And you're like, oh.
We knew that already!
Well, there's also the really depressing theory. There's also the really depressing theory that the distance between planets that actually have intelligent life may be so great that no civilization ever gets to the point where they're advanced enough to travel between them, because they just go extinct before they ever reach that point. That's one of the theories. Like, there have been other intelligent civilizations, or could be now, but they'll never interact with each other because the distances involved are so insane.
There's all kinds of calculations as to like different statistical possibilities as to like why we haven't interacted with any other civilizations.
I mean, look, unless some aliens show up on our doorstep, I don't think we're making it to them. We're definitely going extinct before we reach them. So they've got to reach us first.
Who knows? We will find out when we continue to do episodes of the Demons from Outer Space. But next week we're going to take a break from science of the real world variety, and we're going to go back to the wacky, always sanity questioning world of Doctor Who. And we are going to do some classic Who. So Dylan, I know we hadn't finalized the story we were going to do because we were kind of debating as to what you could get access to, but I definitely want to do some classic Who. So, I think the best bet we discussed was doing the recently released update. Oh, I guess it was more of they finished the storyline, the Shada, the original Tom Baker Shada storyline.
Yes, the story that they actually used footage from, because it was a canceled storyline, they actually used footage from it in The Five Doctors. So I'm interested to see the whole thing as a whole and figure out where that puzzle piece originally was from.
Yeah, it's going to be fucking madness.
Because they couldn't get Tom Baker to be in that, so they were like, we got any footage of him lying around? Oh, there's the story we never finished. Great, throw that in there.
It's interesting that this is going to be our first Tom Baker Doctor Who review, considering that it's like a lost story.
Is it? Didn't we do Genesis of the Daleks at some point?
Did we review Genesis?
I think we talked about Genesis of the Daleks at some point. Was that on recording, though? I don't know.
I don't think that we ever reviewed it. I feel like you just told me I should watch it, and I did.
Oh, and then you were like, that was really fucking good, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the extent of it. I don't think it was for any kind of grand, like, oh, we're going to talk about how amazing Genesis is. I feel like that's, like, we still have yet to do that.
Genesis. Okay.
But yeah, it should be a lot of fun as long as we can get access to it.
Yeah.
So
Shada maybe, question mark.
Yes, and if we can, we'll find some other classic Doctor Who thing. And if it's not an episode of the show, maybe we can even do some classic Doctor Who comics, which we can get access to. I learned recently. But we'll see. Hopefully it'll be classic Doctor Who. So, until then, another announcement we should also make. We don't have a finalized date for this yet either, but you should be aware that it is coming soon, in the next week or so. The 100th episode of the Sons of Sarazawa podcast is going to be a live show. When we have the finalized date for when the live show will happen, you will know about it. It'll be a Q&A, cryptid trivia, likely some commentary thrown in there, extravaganza. So hopefully you'll be able to join us and be part of it live. It'll obviously be up afterwards to be listened to like a normal episode, but you really should try to be there. It's gonna be different, and I feel like the experience of being there with the four of us, coming up with the bullshit right there, it's gonna be kind of once in a the closest we could have ever gotten to that G-Fest panel we talked about back in the day.
Yeah, well, it's the closest you could ever get to what it's like being around us in person, I feel.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I think you definitely have to try and make it.
Still not really, because it's going to be on YouTube, and we're going to be doing a little bit of the fucking, trying to entertain you, doing the whole monkey dance.
That
bullshit.
a little bit, but it's not we're not going to be like, oh, we have this, and this we have to talk about. It's going to be, oh, we're here, and we're just kind of reacting to things in the moment.
Right. It's going to be super informal.
Yeah, very informal.
Super informal. If I could lay my hands on some alcohol before then, which I probably won't be able to, I would drink during it.
I might smoke a fat blunt on the air if I have the balls.
On the air.
Nah, I don't know if I could do that.
You might just do like David did and smoke it during a jump cut, and then you come back and you're just like fucking stoned out of your head.
I have done stuff like that before. I mean, I've taken hits like on audio, and you can't really tell, but I mean, now I've just revealed my trick. Oh no, they're after me. Fucking, what was the name of our NSA agent? What was the name that we settled on? Shakwand or whatever?
Tayshawn, if it's a sassy black man.
I like the idea of Tayshawn.
Okay, so our NSA agent is officially a sassy black man. That's now
yes.
SOS canon.
It's SOS lore.
Yes.
So we're going to review the Shada next week, and also probably do the 100th episode of the Sons of Sarazawa podcast. Oh, well, I can give you the day it'll likely be on, because it will have to be a Monday or Tuesday, which are my days off from work, because I will need time around the live show to actually make it happen. So that will be the actual day, although that won't be the day that Andres will be a part of it. So, like I said, all the details will... you can look at... I'll do a video myself announcing all the details, and there will also be a series of Facebook posts about it. So follow the Sons of Sarazawa Network homepage on Facebook for updates on that, and you should be good. Until next time, though, I'm Bill Worster, aka Zazubaar.
And I'm Super DM64.
It was a podcast. You heard it. Or did you? Meh-nah-nah-nah.